Have you ever wondered why some men cannot let go, even when a woman has removed herself from their orbit? Some women carry a presence that defies pursuit, a weight of silence so profound it unsettles the mind and ignites the ego. It is not her cruelty, nor her indifference, but her sovereignty that awakens something primal, something raw in him, the shadow he rarely confronts. In Jungian terms, she becomes the mirror of his unacknowledged self, a reflection of the desires he does not dare articulate, and the insecurities he hides beneath carefully constructed facades. She walks through life with the elegance of one who belongs only to herself, untouched by the need for external validation. Her confidence is not loud. It is the still, unshakable certainty of a woman who has traversed the corridors of her own psyche. In observing her, a man begins to feel the stirrings of an internal hunger that is both intoxicating and disorienting. His attention sharpens. His mind begins to orbit her presence even in absence, and his ego teeters on the edge of obsession. This is no simple attraction. This is the pull of the unconscious, the irresistible call of the anima to confront the shadow he refuses to see. You might ask yourself, why does he fixate? Why does the mind replay her gestures, her laughter, the weight of her quiet glance? It is because she embodies a paradox that challenges every narrative he has told himself. She needs nothing from him, yet in her freedom, she commands all of his attention. The more he grasps, the more she retreats into the space of her autonomy, and with every retreat, the desire intensifies. In Jungian psychology, this is projection at its most potent. He projects his longing for wholeness, for the parts of himself he refuses to integrate, onto her. She is not the source of his obsession. She is the catalyst. There is a darkness in this dynamic, subtle but electric, a dangerous symmetry of desire and restraint. Some men, unpracticed in the art of inner reflection, mistake her independence for a challenge, a game to be won, a puzzle to be solved. But she does not play. She does not measure her worth by his recognition. Every attempt to possess, to draw her into the orbit of his ego, only mirrors the deficiency he has not yet faced in himself. She is a living testament to the truth that the mind clings to illusions of control, while the soul longs for authenticity. Notice the elegance in her refusal to need him. It is not born of pride, but of awareness. Her self-possession is a reflection of the laborious journey inward, the shadow work that requires confronting fear, trauma, and the fragmented elements of the self. In Jungian terms, she has approached individuation. Her presence demands reckoning. He must confront his own incompleteness, or be haunted by it endlessly. You see, the intensity of his obsession is not a measure of her power over him, but a measure of his confrontation with himself. His desire becomes a mirror, of his unresolved attachments, his wounds, his unhealed traumas. A woman who needs nothing is terrifying because she exposes dependency for what it is, an illusion. She is both a teacher and a threshold, inviting him to recognize that to pursue her without self-mastery is to chase a phantom, a reflection of a longing that resides within his own psyche. The dance of attraction unfolds not in words or gestures, but in the spaces between, in glances unreturned, and silences that echo with meaning. Each retreat she makes sharpens his awareness of his own deficits. Each act of autonomy becomes a provocation. And yet, in this tension lies the poetry of power. She remains untouched, unpossessed, and yet impossibly present. She exists as the embodiment of what he cannot create in himself, a completeness that is both a mirror and a torment. Even his rational mind struggles to comprehend it. The patterns of his behavior, the obsessive revisiting of her image, the compulsive need to measure himself against her freedom, all are symptoms of the unconscious tug she exerts. And you, as the observer, must recognize that this is not manipulation. It is an invitation to witness the mechanics of desire unclouded by ego, a lesson in the alchemy of absence. She teaches without speaking, challenges without confrontation, and in doing so, she evokes the deepest currents of masculine yearning, confronting him with truths he would rather ignore. Some women may never realize the effect they have, yet it is precisely in their unyielding autonomy that their power lies. The shadow stirs in those who cannot grasp her independence, their obsession a testament to the emptiness they have yet to fill within themselves. In understanding this, one perceives the subtle genius of detachment. She does not bend to please. She does not fracture to be loved. And in her refusal, she becomes unforgettable. You cannot force a man to see this, but you can observe the way his psyche is drawn to what he cannot possess, how the invisible tension between need and freedom ignites a storm he cannot quiet. And now, as you consider this dynamic, ask yourself, do you seek to chase the fleeting attention of those unready to confront their own shadows? Or do you embody the very certainty that renders pursuit meaningless? Her presence is a reminder that value is not extracted from approval, but from the inner mastery that allows her to stand complete, unshaken by the vacillations of another's desire. The storm she evokes is not her own. It is the reflection of the turbulent psyche that refuses to integrate, that clings to control and seeks validation in places that can never satisfy. She stands apart, not in arrogance, but in the quiet, lethal precision of self-possession. And in every glance, every pause, every deliberate silence, she demonstrates that the true power of a woman is not in being chaste, but in being whole. The fascination he feels is not superficial. It is a compulsion born from the collision of his ego with the enigma of her completeness. He is drawn to her as a moth to a flame, yet it is a flame that does not consume him. It illuminates the shadows he hides from, even himself. In Jungian thought, she becomes the anima in its most formidable form, the unconscious feminine force that forces confrontation with his inner chaos. His desire is not for her alone, but for the wholeness she represents, the unbroken integration of self he has never attained. Observe how his mind traces her absence. Every thought of her sparks a chain reaction within, each memory of her independence igniting reflection and discomfort. She has no need to respond, no need to soften, no need to fill the void he presumes exists. And this is precisely why he cannot let her go. She is the enigma he cannot decode. He is confronted with the parts of himself he has long suppressed. The insecurity, the fear of inadequacy, the yearning for validation he can never demand without revealing the hollowness he guards. You must understand this. It is not her responsibility to heal him, to complete him, or to temper the shadows that gnaw at his mind. She is a reflection, a mirror held high and unflinching, showing him what he refuses to integrate. In every interaction, or in the deliberate absence of interaction, she exposes the fractures in his self-concept, his dependence on external recognition, and his inability to inhabit the fullness of his own being. Her power is quiet, but it is merciless, for it demands that he reckon with the truth of his inner world, whether he desires it or not, and yet he cannot escape. The paradox is intoxicating. The more he realizes that the ego recoils, but the shadow pulls closer, insisting that the object of obsession embodies the very wholeness he seeks. Every attempt to possess her is a confrontation with his limitations. Every fantasy of control is met with the immutable reality of her autonomy. She exists as an archetype, a living symbol of the integration of power, self-sufficiency, and unyielding confidence. To engage with her is to face a truth too vast for the ego to contain. The truth that he is incomplete, and that no amount of pursuit can amend this absence within. There is an elegance to her danger. It is not the danger of malice, but of clarity. She does not seek to manipulate. She simply exists in a state of total sovereignty, and this presence alone is enough to unravel him. His obsession is evidence of the unconscious mind. She is both the cause and the catalyst, and the intensity he experiences is the shadow's whisper. Confront or be consumed. You feel it when you observe him. The subtle changes in posture, the compulsive replay of her image, the restless energy that follows her absence, These are the markers of a mind ensnared, a psyche grappling with the unintegrated anima, a heart unsettled by a woman who refuses to submit to expectation. She moves like a storm contained, precise, deliberate, shadows melting into darkness, and impossible to grasp. Consider how trauma and unresolved attachment patterns amplify this effect. The man who encounters her often carries wounds of abandonment, rejection, or unacknowledged inadequacy. When a woman does not meet him in his need, when she does not fill the hollow spaces he expects to be filled, his psyche reacts with urgency. It is an emotional flare, a signal of the depth of his dependency and the fragility of his ego. Yet she does not bend. She does not soothe. She does not yield. She embodies what he cannot cultivate within himself. Self-possession untainted by fear, unshaken by desire, untouchable by ego. And you, the observer, can see the elegance in this power. It is in her refusal to chase, in her mastery of stillness, in the way she maintains boundaries that are absolute, that she becomes unforgettable. The obsession she incites is not manufactured. It is a byproduct of her completeness. It is a cruel, beautiful truth. Desire, when met with refusal, crystallizes. Obsession grows where validation cannot be extracted. The stronger she stands in her autonomy, the deeper the pull he experiences, and yet he remains unable to touch the essence of her being. This is the paradox of feminine power. The less she seeks to captivate, the more compelling she becomes. The less she conforms, the more magnetic. Her refusal is not punishment, it is revelation. She illuminates the illusions of control, the futility of pursuit, and the necessity of self-mastery. And in every subtle interaction, or the absence of interaction, he is reminded of what he lacks, what he longs for, and what he must confront in the uncharted territories of his own psyche. And now, the climax of this psychological tension unfolds. The man's obsession, his relentless orbit around her autonomy, reaches its zenith, not because she seeks to ensnare him, but because she refuses to bend. In his fixation, he confronts the raw architecture of desire, the interplay of ego, projection, and the unintegrated shadow. Every attempt to close the distance between them is met with the unyielding truth of her wholeness. She does not recoil from attention. She simply moves in alignment with her own center. And in doing so, she reveals the futility of need. Observe how her detachment serves as both sword and mirror. He sees in her independence the reflection of his inadequacies, the unhealed wounds, the corners of his psyche left in darkness. The intensity of his obsession is not a measure of her power over him. It is a measure of his confrontation with himself. Every compulsive thought, every return to her image, every surge of longing is the shadow speaking. The parts of him he refuses to claim are demanding recognition. And yet she remains untouched, elegant, deliberate, a presence impossible to possess. Her autonomy is the paradox that commands him. And the more he reaches, the further she stands from his grasp. Not in cruelty, but in perfect alignment with her own value. You must understand the subtlety of this power. She does not need to assert dominance, for dominance is irrelevant to her sovereignty. Her strength lies in self-containment, in the refusal to fragment herself for the sake of external desire. This is not withdrawal. It is mastery. Every choice she makes emanates from the integration of light and shadow, the reconciliation of the inner feminine, and the conscious she is complete. And in her completeness, he becomes both enthralled and undone. The psychological currents at play are fierce and illuminating. The obsession she evokes is the manifestation of unmet needs, unresolved trauma, and the ego's terror at encountering a woman who refuses to be reduced to a reflection of his desire. In Jungian terms, she is the animus mirror, the archetype that challenges his incompleteness. Every glance, every measured pause, every subtle boundary functions as a revelation, a teaching that cannot be ignored, and he cannot escape it. For the mind clings to what it cannot possess, even as the soul longs for integration and wholeness. And you, who witness this, must recognize the truth within yourself as well. Power does not reside in pursuit. It resides in presence. In the woman who evokes obsession is not chasing attention. She is embodying a reality he cannot yet inhabit. Self-possession, emotional sovereignty, and unshakable awareness. She is a living testament to the principle that the only validation that matters is internal. She requires nothing, and in requiring nothing, she commands everything. Imagine the liberation that follows such realization. She stands unbound by expectation, immune to the turbulence of another's need, and fully aligned with her own purpose. Her energy is not scattered by longing for approval. It flows entirely from her own source. The man may linger in his obsession, orbiting the brilliance he cannot claim, but she moves in the quiet certainty of her own truth. And in this, there is profound freedom, the power to exist without compromise, to choose without fear, to radiate value that needs no external confirmation. Let this be the lesson etched in shadow and light. The storm she evokes is not hers alone. It is a mirror for the psyche that chases, for the desire that clings, for the ego that seeks control. When she steps into her sovereignty, she becomes untouchable, not through rejection, but through alignment with herself. The intensity she elicits is the echo of the unintegrated shadow, the pulse of longing unmet, and the awakening of awareness that some truths cannot be possessed, only acknowledged. And so the circle closes. The man who obsesses over her is faced with a choice, whether consciously or unconsciously, to chase illusions and be consumed by desire, or to confront the fragments within and grow. She does not intervene. She does not plead. She does not soften. She simply is, complete, sovereign, and untouchable. Every step she takes, every measured silence, every unclaimed glance, she teaches without speaking, commands without coercion, and embodies the truth that power lies in being whole. The final recognition dawns not in conquest, but in clarity. Obsession is a symptom, not a triumph. Attention is not ownership, and desire is not mastery. She exists as a living archetype of what is possible when a woman claims herself fully, integrated, fearless, unbound, and luminous. And those who encounter her are confronted with the undeniable, inescapable truth. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.